Deborah Louise Lavoie, my last guest for today in the international track of the National Library Conference in the Netherlands is 2021. Virtual, like I said, I regret the fact that we can't have dinner with thousands of people. I regret that I have not been able to bring you over here. It would have been lovely to show you around in the Netherlands, Deb, but this is it. For the people watching, please put your questions that you have in de chat. I can see them on my screen over here. Stop je vragen aan de zijkant in de chat. En ik zie ze hier. And in the end, we'll reserve some time to answer the questions, to have you answer the questions. That boy, what can I say? Founder of Reality Team. We got to meet by Michael Edson's brilliant initiative of United Nations Live project. A while ago, and I heard about this initiative. You are originally, I think, a marketeer. You came from marketing. You did some software engineering, and you became upset with everything going on with the news and the fact that people, they were just basically spreading all those rumors and this conspiracy theories coming up, and you wanted to do something about it, and you found this platform where people can learn about the news in a different way. And it was at the same time that I was involved in ideas about doing something similar in the Netherlands. So you triggered me, and I was really impressed with the way your work is progressing. So I'm very happy that you're here. I will shut up and I will let you do the talking. I hand it over to you. You have the floor now. Please share your slides and take it away.
I will. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and I am ever grateful for the support you've shown me since the very, very earliest stages of this project. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share a bit of what we've learned. So for those of you watching, thank you for spending this time with me. You are probably aware that there's some pretty weird things going on in the United States. And the issue of radicalization is becoming increasingly visible and increasingly important to people. As Eric said, I'm a marketing strategist and a technologist, and I have been studying narratives for 20 years. And as such, what I studied was how to build narratives, and for companies, I mostly worked for technology companies, and how to help audiences understand what those technology companies did and why it should matter to them. So I had some pretty clear models of how to build these narratives and how to get the right people to see them and understand them in the right way, and try to get momentum behind these narratives. In 2016, I noticed that the disinformation campaigns that were coming both domestically in the United States and from foreign sources followed exactly the same patterns as a marketing campaign. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. This is a digital marketing problem, and I know about digital marketing. So I became pretty obsessed with disinformation and how to battle it. And there are a lot of very smart people doing a lot of very smart things in this space. People looking at various kinds of technology interventions, platform changes, moderation, certainly legislation, laws, educational initiatives. But some of those were either very long-term or just way outside my area of expertise. So I thought, really what I need to do is find some people working on counter narratives, fighting disinformation and what I called narrative warfare with good guy versions of the same thing. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what that was going to look like. And a lot of it was very academic and very unfocused. And then this happened. So this is my daughter, Zoe. She's very online. And she's a very typical 16-year-old. She is really a fantastic kid, but her online behavior is really superficial. She spends all her time in Snapchat and TikTok looking at makeup videos and puppies. her political concerns, and I have that in quotes because I'm not so sure whether she thinks of these as politics or just sort of moral issues for her, but these are the things that sort of matter to her. And then one day she comes downstairs and asks me this question: is Biden really a pedophile? And I'm stunned. I do not know. I don't know where she got this idea. I am angry. I am flipping out. And I'm also trying to understand where she got this idea from. And she said, well, everybody on TikTok is talking about it. Interesting. Okay. This is my son. Like my daughter, he's a smart kid. He's graduating from university this year. He's sort of an all-American type. He plays sports. He plays guitar. He's in California, so he's a surfer. He does yoga. He's really into health and nutrition. His politics are, he's liberal. He's got a very strong sort of ethical and moral code, but he's really skeptical. He thinks everyone is lying. And when he came home from school to sort of shelter during the pandemic with us, he had this conversation with us. We were talking about the election that was going on here. And he had, blah, blah, Trump's not great, but he rebuilt the military, and Biden, of course, has dementia. And he really believed these things. And again, why do you believe these things? So looking at why they believe these things, first of all, they see a ton of disinformation online. They're naive. They have no sense of nuance. They have no sense of history. They have no perspective on anything that they're seeing. This is the only political environment they've ever known. They don't get firsthand news. So it would never occur to either of these kids, who are well-educated, children of well-educated, relatively privileged kids. They don't read newspapers. They don't watch news programs. They do not get any firsthand exposure to journalism of any kind. And for what is a complex set of reasons, they can't tell the difference between truth, lies, and satire. So is this just my kids? Turns out it's not. So Pew Research Center has been pursuing this line of research for a couple of years now. And one of the questions they ask people is, when you get news and information about the coronavirus outbreak, do you generally find it difficult or easy to determine what is and is not true? And in the US, 50% of adults said it was difficult to tell the difference. So this is not a fringe group. This is not a minor set of people. This is, a majority of adults in the United States are no longer confident that they can tell the difference between truth and lies. So roughly there are three groups of people in the United States now. There are those that are relatively solidly footed in reality. There are those that are deeply indoctrinated into various mythologies of one type of or another. And then there's this massive body of people who are simply confused. So if we are going to de-radicalize the United States, the first thing we need to do is prevent more people from getting radicalized. And that means we have to talk to this group of confused and help them feel more confident that they can tell the difference between truth and lies. So this is sort of what my daughter's information environment looks like right now. It's mostly online. It's mostly entertainment of various kinds, puppies and makeup, and a lot of misinformation, some satire, and some really, really pernicious disinformation. what we need to do is make sure that, first of all, we start sneaking some reality into her information environment in a way that she can appreciate it, right? And in doing so, we want to push out the lies. And of course, we want to help her be able to tell the difference between truth and lies. And of course, it's not just my daughter. There's so that data about who finds it hard and who finds it difficult to tell truth from fiction, you can go into that tool and you can break it down by age group and various types of demographics. It's fairly consistent across all age groups and most demographics. There's some changes, but it's a very broad problem. So in order to prevent radicalization, we want to keep people connected to reality. We also have to understand that there are bad actors who are intentionally trying to indoctrinate people into these mythologies, into these conspiracy theories and ways of thinking that are completely disconnected from reality. This is intentional. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that these indoctrination processes are very intentional and very, very effective. I want to show you this because this is a text from my mother-in-law to our family, our little family group chat. And she sent a link that you might see is from the Epoch Times. And this is me in all caps yelling at my mother-in-law not to send this link. And my whole family really came down on me hard because you should not talk to your mother-in-law in all caps. It's rude. And my daughter comes in and says, "Mom, it's just a baby lion." But that's part of how these indoctrination strategies work. They bring you in with kittens and puppies and recipes and lifestyle. And then bit by bit, they show you things that are untrue and less credible once you're comfortable with them as a source of interesting and entertaining information. And that's how they get you. People are not aware of this, but this is a real thing. It is a dangerous thing. And as you can see, my mother-in-law, my daughter, my husband, my son, and my sister, who all yelled at me for yelling at my mother-in-law, none of them were aware of this. So how to fight radicalization? There's a lot of ways, but this is our way. This is, the simplest possible thing our team could think of to do, which is to, first of all, let's make truth simpler. Let's change the ratio of good to garbage on people's feeds, break through filter bubbles, and prepare people to be able to tell truth from fiction. I want to say that at this point in the project, I got some help from S.J. Terp. She is a fearless soldier in the fight against disinformation herself. And she realized that this was a unique approach, and she really was the one to convince me that I had to do this myself. She also found me my first round of volunteers to help me get started. So making truth simpler. So in the United States, you might have heard that one of the key bits of disinformation going around is voter fraud and election fraud, especially the idea that vote by mail is fraud. So the disinformation is super simple phrase, and the response to it, the journalism, the debunking, is this. The people who see this are not going to see this. They're not going to read it. It's not available to them. So what we thought is, well, let's make the debunks, let's make the reality as simple as the disinformation. So we built what we called cards with the rumor, bad people will steal ballots and make copies or do fraud. And in reality, mail-in ballots are very hard to do fraud with because they have all sorts of embedded security elements on them. We add a little bit more explanation, and we always show our references. So in between the last week of August and November 3rd, which is the US election, we managed to get a website up, build a team, and build about 125 of these counter narratives. it was rough. It was a little, some of the quality was a little uneven, but we managed to pump all this stuff out and we learned a lot along the way. But we didn't want to just have simple truths. We needed to push these to the people who needed to see them, right? So we got some more help from Jennifer Lee, who goes by Jennifer 8 Lee, yes, who championed us and helped us get a grant from the Craig Newmark Philanthropies to try to push this forward. And so with a little bit of money, we were able to run ads on Facebook and Instagram, which, by the way, is very much how the agents of disinformation start out as well. There's a lot more to it than that, of course. But we had, we put together some numbers because, of course, you have to. But these numbers really blew us away. In the 11 weeks that we were running ads, we got 3.6 million impressions to over 1 million people, and got over 1 million people to click on those ads, which is, if you know anything about the statistics here, that is a remarkably good performance on ads. So what this proved is, number one, there really is appetite for this type of information. If you put it out there, people will consume it. They are interested. Number two, we can change the ratio. We basically can buy back digital territory from the bad guys. And we can do it at a bargain price. And going forward in 2021, we'll be doing more of this. We'll be particularly focusing on vaccines and, depending on what happens, other stuff that comes up. But, in terms of vaccines, the best explanations about what's going on with vaccines just simply can't compete with this, which, by the way, my son sent me because a friend of his shared it with him, which is ridiculous conspiracy theories about what is in vaccine ingredients. It's, it's false, it's incendiary, it's bizarre. And by the way, they're trying to convince you that you're torturing baby chickens, which of course, my son eats like 5 scrambled eggs a day. So anyway. All right. So further fighting radicalization, you got to talk to the people who need to hear it, right? So you may or may not be familiar with this concept of filter bubble. This was a term that was popularized by Eli Pariser a few years back. He gave a really good TED Talk about it. If you want to look it up, it's a great TED Talk. But basically, every time you click online, somebody's making money. So they want you to click on stuff. So they tend to show you stuff that is similar to stuff you've already clicked on. So the algorithms are really optimized to show you stuff you like. Furthermore, bad actors, these agents of disinformation, come in and try to surround you with lies and give you a lot of attention and a lot of positive reinforcement. They like you, they befriend you, and they're trying to insulate you from the outside world. So the algorithms plus these bad actors are really working very hard to insulate people from truth. One of the most effective ways to break through people's filter bubbles is through ad targeting. So what we did was, look, we knew we couldn't really talk to people who were deeply indoctrinated. They weren't going to respond well to our stuff. We didn't think we needed to talk to people who were, really liberal or really nerdy or really intellectual because they're fine, right? So we focused on that huge chunk of the confused that I described earlier. In particular, we felt that people in swing states were likely to be getting more disinformation. They're where people were the disinformation was really heavily focused. We targeted people who do not read news, right? And had no strong political affiliation. We targeted youth between 17 to 25 and older women, as well as Trump skeptical Christians. There were reasons we chose those I don't need to get into here, but we were specifically targeting people who are unlikely to read the 10,000 word article in The Atlantic debunking voter fraud, right? Furthermore, after the general election in the United States, there was this very important set of races in Georgia that culminated on January 5th. And there were three issues that turned out to be very important there. One was voter information. A lot of people in Georgia were first-time voters or new voters. So just getting them voter education, how to vote, where to vote, when to vote. Election fraud was a big topic then. And the biggest, one of the biggest themes of disinformation in Georgia and around the US is this idea that Democrats were somehow radical socialists. So one of the ads that we put out was on radical socialism and why is this a thing? And of course, you know, in the little format that we're trying to do, you can't really get into the whole thing about, you know, the means of production and nobody even cares and nobody in the United States knows anywhere near enough to have an intelligent conversation about socialism versus capitalism versus democracy. People, the general public, those are not terms that people really understand. But this idea of socialism had become a bad word. So we looked at what did people think it meant rather than trying to have a big discussion about what socialism is. We just tried to address what people were afraid of. Anyway, we did some study after we finished, and we found out that if you look up in Facebook's database, you can see that there were 13 different advertisers running ads using the word socialism in December and January. Our team was the only one of those 13 advertisers saying, no, actually not radical socialism. That's not what this is. All of these others were trying to say that, you know, they were using it as disinformation. Sorry. So what's interesting about this is that if you know anything about online advertising, you'll know that you buy ads online in an auction. You bid on them. And the platforms, in this case, Facebook and Instagram, have a complex and opaque algorithm that they use depending on how much you're willing to pay and what audience you're trying to reach and how your ads have performed in the past. You will win the auction and get displayed. And they will, and then Facebook will charge you a certain amount of money. Anytime we won this auction, not only were we showing people a counter narrative against this nonsense about socialism, but we were making sure that one of these ads weren't there. So we were literally outbidding these guys for the space. We're pushing them off the space. So preparing people. For a lot of very complicated reasons, people have lost confidence that they can tell the difference between truth and lies. And this leads to a few things. Number one, it makes them disengage farther. They don't want to read the stuff because it scares them and they don't know what's true. And they know they're hearing conflicting things and they don't know what's true, and it creates a lot of stress. It creates a lot of skepticism, resentment, anger, and just a sense that don't talk to me. I don't want to know. I can't deal with it. So in addition to trying to push out valid information and show people what validation information is and show people what a credible source is, we're also starting a new campaign called Dirty Disinfo Tricks. So the idea here is that propagandists, people who promote disinformation, have a common bag of tricks that they use that have been in use forever and certainly throughout the 20th century, but are exaggerated now online. We're teaching them what these tricks look like, not because we think that they're going to be experts, but because we want them to recognize the warning signs and at least know a basic way to do a basic check to tell whether something's true or not. Two of the people who are doing just fantastic work in this space are John Cook, and I failed to capitalize his last name on this slide, forgive me. But he came up with this model known as FLIC, which is sort of a hierarchy of propaganda tricks. Mike Gordon is another person who does really detailed, interesting work, taking apart what politicians say to find the sort of propaganda tricks they use in there. Now, I love John Cook's work, but this works for people who are willing to go out and look for it. This is great for the TED crowd. This is great for, nerds and students guided through this in class. But we didn't think it was going to really work for the audience we're trying to reach. So we're basically taking memes and building this campaign to try to help people recognize these silly little disinformation tricks, to give them confidence that they can spot a lie when it comes to them. The other thing we're working on is something called Fact Flood. And the idea here is that more people should be aware of disinformation. You'd think everyone is, but they aren't. Invite everyone in to help. So people feel helpless, right? And that people hate feeling helpless. Nobody wants to feel that way. So this gives everyone something that they can do. And this, if it works, will help us build scale. So Fact Flood, the idea behind Fact Flood is, first of all, ghost the lies. I don't know if that translates, but the idea is if you see disinformation online, don't argue with it. Don't correct it directly. Don't touch it. Don't retweet it. Don't hate, touch it. The more you interact with it, the more the platform algorithms give it strength and power and spread it further. Share facts. So when you do see really good, credible information, please share that as widely as possible. Give it your likes, give it your comments, give it your shares. It needs it. And take a sec to check. So we're trying to show people that you can do a quick 30-second fact check. And if you're still not sure, you can ask. We all get fooled sometimes. So every day our team puts out a Fact Flood, and we tag other content with the Fact Flood hashtag. If you'd like to join us in trying to build some momentum around that and get some stats behind that, please do. You can see us at all these different places. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram at RealityTeam11. Our Facebook page is Facebook/RealityTeam11. You can go to our website. I do really want to thank Eric Bookstein, because he had faith early. Like, you were so enthusiastic well before I knew any of this would work. And I was terrified, and that bit of confidence and the confidence you still show in having me here makes a huge difference. I don't do this alone by any stretch of the imagination. There is a team, they work really hard, and they're doing it for free, basically. And of course, to you for listening and caring about this issue and helping me learn from your feedback how to make this ever more powerful. Thanks.
I give you the applause for the whole room, no doubt. I mean, it's so difficult in these times, but you would have a massive applause from everyone. Thank you, Deb. Can you go back to the full screen and stop your presentation? I want to see your face. Thank you so much. Well, can you hear me or not?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, the reason and that why I immediately recognized the good stuff that you're doing is because of you, I think. I mean, we need to do something. We need to step up. It's obviously that there are not enough people doing that, and you're doing that. And that is great. And we have a bunch of librarians sitting out there, Dutch librarians, watching this. And I would like to do more here as well over here. So there's a few comments here in the chat that I can see. And then you get a compliment on reaching out to target groups. But for me, that's maybe a little more clear. How do you decide which target groups to target? It would be one question. And the other thing is from Hans Portengen. This was from Bart van Arnold, a Dutch guy. Hans Portengen asked that Facebook is making it now more difficult to target ads to specific groups. Is that true? And how do you deal with that? So maybe there's two questions there in the chat.
Okay, so number one, how do we choose who to target? Our first, I'll be honest, our first set of targeting criteria was a guess. We just simply guessed. And it turned out the people who were most engaged with our stuff, we got ridiculously good engagement from young women who rarely interact with political or social issue material on Instagram at all. And because we were so successful there, and we're still trying to figure out exactly, was it because we used pretty colors or was it the language? We don't necessarily know why we were so successful there, but we were. We had tried a couple of other targets as well where we did not perform as well. And so this was really just, hypothesis, experiment, results, hypothesis, experiment, results. And so we're sort of refining that as we go. The great thing about using ads is that you can measure exactly what happens and who's responding. So it's really good data. It's a very nice laboratory. And we're still open to suggestions on unique targeting criteria. So if you have some suggestions there, let me know. But we know that people who are watching Fox News, for example, or some of the more radical right media are not going to engage with our stuff, or they will, but it's all just going to be nasty. The people, who are reading the New York Times and the Atlantic don't really need us. So we're really trying to find new ways to get to those people who wouldn't otherwise see us. We also work with a couple of community and activist groups in very specific communities, Black and Brown communities, communities that don't speak English as their first language. So we go through them to get to those communities. The second question I think you asked was around Facebook targeting.
Yeah, to make it more difficult to target ads to those specific groups.
So that is not true.
Okay.
That is not true as far, they mess around. What they did do was shut down political advertising for a number of weeks. And we said, fine, we'll just share fact flood stuff. We are not affiliated with a political group. We are what's in the United States is known as a 501c3. We are forbidden from being partisan, which is fine with me. Disinformation is not strictly partisan. So some of our stuff gets caught up as political ads and some of it is not considered political. Facebook has the most intrusive, toxic, horrible targeting.
Yeah.
I can target you on, what media you watch, what movies you like, where you like to travel, who your friends are, your street address, your gender preferences and identity. I can target you on basically anything at an extremely intrusive level. It should not be that way. And I've gotten some criticism. Why are you giving Facebook money? We hate giving Facebook money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand that. My counter to that is this. If the only people giving Facebook money are toxic bad guys, Facebook is going to be really
it will be a toxic
motivated to stick with the bad guys, right? And secondly, of course, I'm spending a micro fraction of what they are. It turns out in that Georgia campaign we did, we were able to see the amount of money spent on the socialism ads in that time frame and how many people they reached. Our cost was 1/4 of the cost. Our cost to reach someone new is 1/4 of what the bad guys were paying. We're very efficient.
We have little time. I want to ask Jolanda Robbe here from the Netherlands asked the question, did you get feedback from the confused groups and did it change their view? Did the platform already help in changing their view, make them less confused or not?
So that's an interesting question and it's a hard question. In terms of feedback, we got their attention. We got a lot of likes and we got a lot of follows. Did it change their minds? So I'm working with some actual academics to figure out how to measure this because frankly, I don't know how to measure it, so I can't say for sure. What I do know is that these people had the opportunity to see that the lies that they were seeing were not the only things out there, that there were these alternative narratives and that because they were that we always had the sources. I don't know if I changed their minds, but I was at least able to make sure they saw something that they would not otherwise have seen. So our goal for this next quarter is to team up with an academic to put some rigorous research behind how much impact we did or didn't have, and how to tune our approach for greater impact.
We have like less than 2 minutes, but I just want to ask the question. Like I tried to connect you with libraries and to get you assistance of libraries and librarians to help you. Are you getting any help from libraries? Is there anything that libraries can do to support you or to step up? I mean, libraries have no money, or well, they always say that, but.
Yeah, so the things that we need help with and that librarians can help us. First of all, librarians understand the information space so well and understand how to curate it so well. Yeah. We are not journalists. We're not fact checkers. We're not researchers. We're digital marketing. We are marketing reality, essentially. Here's what we need. We do need funding. So if you know of a funder, if you work with a funder who you think might be interested in our project, certainly introduce us. But help us reach your audiences, right? Participate in Fact Flood. Tell us what you think should be a fact flood. What conversations are you having that lead you to believe people do or do not understand certain things? Engage with us. Tell us what you're seeing. Help share our work, and we will be delighted to engage you in our community. And we need your knowledge. We need your experience. We need your insight.
Okay, Deb, we have to go. I see the time is clicking away. Thank you so much for your time once again, and we'll be in touch, no doubt. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank
Lovely
you very much. Bye-bye.